Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Point Forward podcast. My name is JR Radcliffe with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I am joined by my colleague, Jim Owczarski. He has been following around the Milwaukee Bucks. He has made it home through a global IT outage. Congratulations, Jim. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
The Milwaukee Bucks are in bad shape. They just came home from Cleveland, losers of 2 straight games now, having lost to the Lakers before that. I was wrong about how easily they would defeat the Charlotte Hornets in their NBA Cup game at Pfizer Forum. I suggested that would be a pretty lopsided affair. It was an overtime affair. Hey, they won the game, but it has been a struggle. The Bucks right now squarely in position where they have to fight to even get into the play-in. It's obviously extremely early, and an 8-7 record is not a lot. But now Giannis Antetokounmpo leaves this game against Cleveland injured. I don't know how much we know. That's where we're going to start. But Jim, it's bleak, man. It was bleak even before the injury with the way the team has played lately. And this obviously couldn't be worse. We've talked a lot about how they're quite bad when Giannis is not on the floor. I don't know if we're guaranteed that Giannis is going to miss a whole bunch of games here, but it did not look good. He does not often leave games. What is your sense of where they are with this injury? What is the timeline when you're going to find out a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might happen as we're recording this podcast. JR in the off day on Tuesday here. He's supposed to get imaging, at least according to Doc Rivers, once they return to Milwaukee. How long that takes and when they read it and how and when they choose to disseminate that information obviously is up to the team. So they practice tomorrow. So I would imagine between these words and by the time we see Doc Rivers tomorrow afternoon, we'll know something more. And yeah, you're right. Like Giannis typically doesn't just leave games, right? I guess if you're looking for a positive, it's that he got up and, jogged down the court and kind of ran around briefly defensively before committing the foul and was able to walk off under his own power. So that I guess you would think or hope is good in terms of like a very, very serious tear or something along those lines. But again, JR, really hard to know. And let's be real, even if it's the best case scenario, you're talking about an explosive sport, arguably the most explosive athlete playing that sport. The way he moves and the hits he takes. I mean, he kind of felt this, on a foul that wasn't called, and what's the line there of feeling good, not feeling good? Clearly he's not going to practice in a live setting where his teammates are hitting him and, all that kind of thing. So it's a really tricky spot, even on the best case scenario, JR. So I'm not going to really venture to guess, but it's to your bigger point though, like Doc's been a little testy the last few pre-games as he's changed his starting lineup. He's changed his rotations. It's not something he likes to talk about. He gets kind of defensive and snippy. And, just before the game in Cleveland, again, kind of short and just was like, well, we're not good in the non-Giannis minutes. We got to figure it out. And now they got to play 48 non-Giannis minutes, most likely going forward here, JR. So, they're down now the best player in the world, arguably, leading scorer, their leading shot taker. Kevin Porter Jr. was arguably their second best shot creator, supposed to be their second leading scorer. It's a battle of attrition, JR. Like, you're down 2 starters. Most teams, that's going to be tough, especially if one of the 2 is your best player and 2 of 2 are your 2 best. And then, oh, by the way, your 43% three-point shooting 7th, 8th man is also out. So, they are missing so many points, so many threes, so many assists. They're a bad rebounding team with Giannis. And now you're missing the second best rebounder in the league. Like, it's on paper, JR, not great going forward for the Bucks.
Of course, you're referring to Taurean Prince, the 7th, 8th man. He has had neck surgery since we last chatted, so he is out for a very long period of time. And Kevin Porter, whenever we see him again, I feel like the doomer in me must acknowledge that you have to at least wait until then. Wait until he gets back and see what you have. We've seen Ryan Rollins develop into a legitimate, like, excellent player. He's a big time contributor on this team. And if Porter's back and presumably Giannis is back, now we can see what they look like, because I really do feel like not having Kevin Porter has really been, has looked worse and worse as the games go on. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to wait for that to happen, because what I've seen other than that is a team that is not a playoff team. That's, even with the best player in the world, arguably, on it, playing out of his mind, they have nothing else. They're nothing. So is that a fair way of looking at it? Like, wait till Kevin Porter gets back and see what happens. But if he doesn't come back, or he isn't full strength, I don't know what they have here, Jim. They don't have a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bobby Portis perhaps said it best last night, JR, where he says it's disheartening because this team was constructed to pull the best out of Giannis, which we have seen. And Giannis is the guy who can pull the best out of everybody else, which we have been seeing. But there's just no backstop, right? Like, there's no Dame, there's no Chris. And, I disagree with you that up until like a serious Giannis injury, they weren't a playoff team. Like, they were right in the middle of the East, before losing these two games. And the East, and that's the thing, nothing happens in a vacuum. Like, Detroit clearly is now the runaway. Like, Detroit's going to win 55 plus games and be the far and away one seed. That's looks to be established already, assuming, total health for their 2 stars or 3 stars. Cleveland now 5 games over 500. Like, not the best for them, but they're righting the ship. But again, JR, this is what we've talked about. Seeds 3 through 6, are going to be there for the taking in some form or fashion. And I think where the Bucks will be charged with whether Giannis misses another game only or 2 or 10, is somehow finding a way to tread water in that period of time. That they're 8-7. Can they finish that stretch at 500? And so you're sort of just, starting everything over again when Porter's back, when Giannis is back, because you do see the outline of a team that can be dangerous, that can win some games. In their view, they had kicked away 3 games: Houston, Sacramento, and the first Charlotte game. And look, JR, this is a much different conversation if they're 11-2 last night and lose it, right? Because then you'd be like, oh, you lose like 6 in a row without Giannis. Would it suck? Sure, but we get it. 11-8, Giannis is back. Like, wow. But they didn't win those games. So now, it's not like they're going to totally fall out of, anything. Look, Boston is the 11 seed right now. Obviously not in the play-in, 7-7. But then you get down to 4-11, 2-11. Like, so it's just from 3 to 11 right now, JR. It's really just crowded. And no one, I don't think, is, other than Detroit right now, is going to really separate themselves. Maybe Cleveland rights the ship, but Toronto, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia, Miami, Chicago, Milwaukee, Orlando, like Boston, all flawed teams, injured teams with issues. So again, nothing happens in a vacuum. I think the key, though, is the Bucks need to stay connected to 500. Because if you lose 7 in a row and you're 8-14, now we're back to last year, JR, where 2-8 sucked, but it was the first 10. You had 72 to dig out of it, right? You don't want to be 8-17, and now your runway to dig out of that is so much shorter. So that's really the thing this team and Doc Rivers and his coaching staff have to do, is stay connected. To your point, Kevin Porter Jr. is not coming back till December. I mean, that's the timeline at best, and we'll see what happens with Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're closer to it than I am. If you say they're a playoff team, I believe you. And again, they are
with
8-7.
their
Like they have
guys
a
though.
winning record.
I mean, with their guys, like they're not built like most teams aren't built to withstand losing their best player, one, losing their second best player, two, and losing one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Taurean Prince has been that for a year plus. Most teams are not built for that.
No, right.
And so, yeah, like without those guys, JR, this could be a train wreck. And I don't think that would be anybody's fault per se. It would be an unfortunate paying of the piper for the Lillard decision, but look at Indiana, right? And Boston has been healthy outside of Tatum, which is why they're kind of floating around 500, right? So, the Bucks have $23 million on the books and no player for that. Like in this instance, they are now missing, the 25 points to 7 assists a game, right? Like that player has been injured for the season, out for the year, which was always going to be the case. So with all their guys, yes, I think we saw enough. Well, before Giannis pulled a groin and walked off the court, JR, they're on pace for 48 wins, right? Like, so, A, that would have hit the over if people care about that, and B, that clearly would have put them. I mean, Detroit again. Let's move Detroit. They're out of the conversation.
Sure.
So, the 2 seed, if you will, was like totally in play for a 50-51 win team, right? So, but now to the reality of it, if Giannis is out for an extended period of time, that maybe rivals Kevin Porter, like that's a huge problem. And how do they treading water would be a real victory, in my opinion. Maybe they'll get mad at me for saying that, but I think if you were to start that process, say win one, lose one, they've kind of been on, I think they'd be like okay with that. And then if you're 1 or 2 games over 500 and those guys start to come back or whatever, you might be feeling okay. Hey, like let's lock in and we can maybe make a run and rip 6-7 off in a row. December, January, whenever maybe the whole team's back together.
I think what leaves me feeling dubious is in the last 10 games, all of November. So that's after Giannis sits out and the Bucks play a very good game at home against the Warriors and win without Giannis. 10 games. I would say there's been one good game in that stretch. That was a 126-110 win over the Bulls. They're either losses or really close wins over bad teams, namely the Hornets, the Pacers on a buzzer beater, the Mavericks, and stuff that comes right up to the end. So yes, they're technically on pace to do just about anything, but they have not played well at all in November with Giannis. For the vast majority of that, they've had Giannis. So I guess a slightly compromised Giannis, even if or completely missing, unhealthy Giannis leaves me feeling like there's just nothing in the tank for this team to tread water. And speaking of that water, there will be sharks in the water when if the Bucks start falling behind. And we talked about that. Yeah. They started out fine, and so maybe that pushed things off to the side for a little bit, but it's going to pick up soon. The ESPN's, just waiting at the door for the Bucks to fall into a position where it looks like the season isn't going to go well. And then they can start talking about their favorite topic, which is moving Giannis Antetokounmpo to another basketball team. Let's get ahead of that a little bit. The possibility of Giannis moving mid-season, I don't think is logistically in there anywhere. I don't know if they can even entertain that, if that would be a thing. And obviously his health plays into that too, but let's set that aside and assume at some point he's healthy later this year. How would that look? Is there any scenario where they could logistically move forward with a move or at least have conversations about it? What would be the next steps if this actually were to come to pass?
No, I mean, I don't even think it's worth getting into too much because it's just not it's not a thing. Because look, if this was some, if it's 1 week or 2 weeks, or if it's a massive tear and he's out for months and months and months, I don't think that changes anything. Because this is such an uncontrollable thing. But to the broader point though of like logistically $54 million, like in season, it's too hard, JR, with like all of the aprons and the rules teams are operating under. And while the Bucks are not a tax team, they have 15 players on their roster. Like you can't just say, well, Giannis to the Clippers for 6 players. Like then where all these guys go? You know what I mean? Like teams, there's just no roster spots. Like that's why in-season trades are usually 1-for-1, or like when we saw the Bucks deal last year, which was that weird 4-way, triangulation. That's a quadrilation of Knicks, Spurs, Washington Bucks, with Cash going here and Patrick Baldwin going there, and then Wave there, and like it's just, and those were all relatively like minimum salaries. So yeah, well, Chris obviously was the big one, but it everything else, like guys that had to be waived and whatever. So yeah, I mean, if anything, JR, it's sort of the opposite. It's what are the discussions internally? I think the Bucks. John Howard told me this, but it just makes sense. Like next summer is when the big move would happen. Like more first round picks open up. They have money to fit salary into. Kyle Kuzma's $20 million is expiring. Like next summer is when the Bucks can add. This deadline, like there's a pick available or a swap available, but look, these guys are hurt, so you're going to trade off guys you need now to win or sustain, right? So like what's the discourse in there about, do we need to make a move now to get us where we need to be this season, depending how long he's out? Maybe it all depends on that too, but no, I don't think actually moving off of the star player is something that's going to happen, even if he's out, because that's the thing, JR. Like if he's out for 10 games and they go 0-10, well, because Giannis Antetokounmpo was out, like he didn't play, he didn't participate, so it's sort of like that really, that's different than if he plays 10 games and they go 0-10. Like it's just that's a wholly other thing. And even then, maybe the chatter would start, but nothing would mostly happen in season. It's just too logistically difficult for players of that status, of that contract, who would have to be involved, all the players involved. It's just the league is making it that much harder to do that kind of thing now.
Let's talk about players other than Giannis. What has to happen for this team to bounce back? Now, again, I'm not even considering the world where Giannis isn't available for a long period of time. As you've seen this team play, and that includes with Giannis, what has to be different? Who are the players who have to step up? Who are the players that have to be better than they have been? There's this Lakers game, which was really bad. They pretty much lost from wire to wire, but they just didn't hit shots. They're going to have games like that. So that might not even be that big of a deal in a vacuum. It was the second game of a back-to-back, although it was for the Lakers as well. And they were the traveling team. So you would assume the Bucks have an advantage there. Giannis played, Luka played, but how does this team get better? The players they have are not stars. How do they get better?
This is a great question. Doc Rivers, admitted, well, I guess I don't know what it is right now because it's post game, but they're gonna have to figure something out, and someone's gonna score, and they're not gonna. They scored 32 points in that half against the Lakers with Giannis, right? Like that's we spoke about this, JR, during the regular or the preview pods that we will, like, right? You'll be like, wait a minute, the Bucks lost because they were 9 of 37 from 3. Like, yeah. In the recent past, JR, like even when they've had star players like Chris and Dame, they have gotten up more threes without Giannis, which makes sense. He shoots the ball 20 times a game. 18 of them are twos. So it makes sense that everyone else is just going to shoot more threes. So I think we're going to get some wild variances there, maybe on a good, bad day. I think Ryan Rollins has been a nice story. We are seeing the growing pains now in the last week, right? We are seeing turnovers, maybe quicker shots than need to happen. He's getting frustrated with fouls. He's sort of like, oh, yeah, he is 23. And, oh, yeah, like he has literally never played this much NBA basketball ever. He's being asked to like handle the ball and defend the best player. Well, here's the next step, Ryan. He's really, JR, their own with Kyle Kuzma. But I put Ryan ahead of Kuz because Ryan's just a better shooter. We're going to find out real fast if Ryan Rollins has star potential or borderline all-star potential here. Because I think of the roster, he's arguably the best one left to win off the dribble, get into the paint, and see in the reads for cutters or threes. Kyle obviously succeeded a little bit in that role earlier in the year, coming in for Giannis, right? A lot of good Kyle Kuzma games. We'll have an update or a feature on him coming up at jsonline.com sort of about all of this. So Kyle will be asked to do that as well, but he's kind of like Giannis in that he's not a shooter from three, and not very consistent, not as consistent at the rim either. So those two guys will be the two, JR, I think, that have to drive the offense in terms of the starting unit. Now, after that, I don't know. I don't know if it's Bobby. In the past, JR, like you could just throw it to Bobby, let him go to work, 6 dribbles, post. They don't play that way anymore. But is this an extenuating circumstance? Is this one of those things where, man, Kevin's down, Giannis is down, Kuzma and Ryan Rollins can't play 48 minutes, so maybe in these moments we do slow it down. I don't know. But Bobby, has lived without Giannis, right, JR? Like he's been like 18 and 12, right? He's had really good starting numbers when Giannis doesn't play in the past. So we know what Bobby can do. Miles is new to this. Like I thought he would shoot more to this point. Can we see something different out of him? I don't know what that is. Like Brooke, we knew what that would look like because Brooke had an all-star history of being sort of a dominant paint scorer. Miles is not that kind of guy. So what does that look like? Right? So, yeah, I look, there's points to be had, shots to be had because the guy taking the most shots is gone. Scoring the most points is gone for however long. So someone will, JR. It's just who and what does it look like? And I do think this is like Rollins has been a really nice story, but if we see like another leap here of, here's a guy who can average, he's averaging 17 and a half already. If he's suddenly a 20-6 guy, holy cow. Like that's borderline all-star numbers. And if he does more of that's pretty remarkable considering he was just a two-way player a year ago.
How about defensively? Any points per game metric? They're a bottom third team or close to it. They might be like 19th or something. Mediocre. Points per game obviously doesn't tell you the whole story most of the time, but what does this team look like to you as a defense? You mentioned Miles Turner. It feels like maybe they were a little bit better defensively with the previous regime than with the current one. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so look, with Miles, with Giannis, your two best interior defensive players, not been good. Bad rebounding team, which was frustrating Rivers. And again, before the Cleveland game, how do you fix that? That's why Kuzma's starting because he's 6'10", and the three guards of Trent, Rollins, Green just weren't getting it done rebounding wise, and they weren't stopping the ball. And this is where they have felt the Porter injury. Like Ryan has been a great success story, maximizing the opportunity, which is great. and maybe that'll be a silver lining come Christmas when everyone, like when KPJ's back. But they're they're missing a 6'6" guard who can get almost a steal and a half a game, right? So they do miss Kevin Porter Jr. up top because that sort of shifted Ryan up. It shifts Cole Anthony up, who is not a defensive player. Gary Harris is playing now. Gary, I think, is a willing defender. He is 31. He's one of the older guys on the team. Can he still do that stuff? This is where you're missing Taurean Prince, who's 6'8", and can play, small forwards or power forwards on the front. Like, so this is where these injuries really hurt schematically. So I don't think they're going to get better. I mean, they're not a better team, obviously, right? So I think, JR, it's man, they just got to be more active, I guess, and tighter on their backside rotations, and just try to limit open threes. Don't let someone just get all the way down to the rim without a challenge there, because Miles Turner isn't Brook. Like, he's actually helping out. He's not just back to the rim. Maybe they go to a little more drop, but Miles has said that's not really his game. We know for years drop defense is not Bobby's game. He's not a rim protector in that way. So Jericho, we'll see what Jericho can do, but he's not a drop guy either. So JR, they're not going to be better. They're just going to have to run around and fly around and like gang rebound even more. But yeah, this is one where I think the offense is the focus, because defensively they were already average at best, but they could outscore you. Now it's like, okay, how do you make up 33 points a game? And I think that's going to be the focus. And then you have your schemes and you try stuff. It's just going to be offensively, try to limit turnovers. And how do we get these points? And then defensively, you just hope, some activity and running around, you can make enough stops to win the game.
Bucks will be at home still for a while, home until Thanksgiving, really. They got a game Thursday against the 76ers. Then they play that Eastern Conference heavyweight, the Detroit Pistons, at the very top of the standings. That's on Saturday, November 22nd at Pfizer Forum. They get Portland on the other side of the weekend on Monday, November 24th. And then they're off for 2 road games back-to-back, both NBA Cup group stage games. Now that they're 2-0, those games will be I hope they have Giannis back for that, because they're near and dear. NBA Cup games would be in jeopardy otherwise. Those are 2 toughies against Miami and against the Knicks. We can keep this pretty short, Jim. That's pretty much it. Anything you have coming that you want to plug at jsonline.com?
I would say get ready. I mean, now, Giannis injury, I imagine what many questions will be, but we'll have our first kind of in-season mailbag. So that'll be jsonline.com for subscribers. So you can, reach me that way. Mention the Kyle Kuzma piece coming up. It's interesting, JR, the best laid plans was going to write something just sort of on catching up on things I've seen, heard, observations on this team. That's totally, now look, if Giannis is going to just miss a couple games, that all still applies. If Giannis is out for weeks and weeks and weeks, I might have to talk to our bosses, our editors on like, maybe we need to change pivot on that, because this is so different than what we would have thought initially. But yeah, Kyle Kuzma, sat down with him, to kind of get into his headspace and where he's been at, and that mailbag coming up. So look out for those.
He is Jim Owczarski. Find everything he has at jsonline.com. Milwaukee Bucks. Tough run, but they can get right at home, especially if Giannis is healthy. And if he's not, well, hold on for dear life. We'll see where that takes us. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. We will chat again very soon here on the Point Forward podcast. Talk to you again soon.